had been injured. And well, as you can see, the Freebirds have joined me today, and they have a specific reason for being here.
You see, last time there were a bunch of lies told, and this time I want to come out and give you an intelligent recount as we stroll down memory lane. Just roll the tape.
All right.
And I'm going to get every minute of it. And as I'm going for it, and they got him hold, look who comes sticking his big nose in it. That's right, and that's what he got for sticking his nose in it. Because if his mammy and his pappy didn't tell him, you don't stick your nose where it don't belong.
But as far as danger, and I think that's what you're alluding to, I've never felt my life more threatened than in that era with Junkyard Dog. And I mean threatened. I mean, we had our car windows bashed. We had, people throwing stuff at us. We had our cars ruined. I remember once we blinded Dog, especially like Charles, Louisiana comes to mind. And we would be coming back from the ring, and people would fill up water pistols full of liquid plumber. And you would fight from the ring to the dressing room.
In the summer heat of the early 1980s South, wrestling wasn't just Saturday night entertainment. It was a battleground. Crowds packed into smoky arenas across Louisiana and Mississippi, sweating and screaming as the Junkyard Dog, the region's most beloved hero, fought for pride, respect, and something bigger than a championship belt. When the Fabulous Freebirds swaggered into Mid-South Wrestling, all blonde hair, rebel attitude, and bad intentions, they weren't just there to play villains. They were there to provoke. What followed was one of the most volatile feuds in wrestling history, where the line between performance and reality disintegrated, and audiences responded not as spectators, but as participants in a racial and cultural drama they felt in their bones. The ring became a reflection of the South itself, divided, angry, and on the edge of exploding. Wrestling in this era thrived on exaggeration, but in Mid-South, nothing about this feud felt exaggerated. The Freebirds embodied the swaggering, defiant image of white Southern rebellion, loud, proud, and unapologetic, while Junkyard Dog represented a new kind of hero, powerful, dignified, and black. His success symbolized a cultural shift that many fans celebrated. When the Freebirds attacked him, they didn't just draw boos, they drew rage. The reaction was visceral, raw, and often dangerous. Fans rioted, police were called, and arenas turned into pressure cookers of racial tension and tribal loyalty. Wrestling promoters wanted heat, but this was something different. This was wrestling's version of realism. Not scripted emotion, but the kind that came straight from the world outside the ring. To understand how the feud between the Junkyard Dog and the Fabulous Freebirds began, you have to understand Bill Watts, a promoter who believed wrestling should feel real. A former wrestler himself, Watts ran Mid-South wrestling like a religion. His shows were stripped down, intense, and grounded in reality. There were no cartoon gimmicks or comedy skits, just hard-hitting athletes and storylines that mirrored the moral codes of his audience. Toughness, pride, loyalty, and justice. Watts built his territory around the Junkyard Dog, knowing he had something unique, a black babyface who could sell out arenas in the Deep South. With guidance from legendary wrestler Ernie Ladd, Watts realized that a black hero could draw massive crowds in his strongholds of Louisiana and Mississippi. Watts first heard of Sylvester Ritter, wrestling as Big Daddy Ritter for Stu Hart, and immediately recognized his charisma and football background, even if his in-ring ability was limited. Watts carefully crafted the Junkyard Dog persona, inspired in part by the rock and roll song Bad Bad Leroy Brown. To maximize JYD's appeal, Watts limited his matches to 5 or 6 minutes at first, slowly building the audience's connection to the character. One of the earliest stars to use entrance music, JYD would ignite the crowd whenever the opening bass notes of Queen's Another One Bites the Dust hit, a signal that the dog was in the house. On March 14, 1980, the Junkyard Dog captured the Louisiana Heavyweight Championship, and eventually the Mississippi Heavyweight Championship, becoming the first man to hold both simultaneously. He was becoming the face of the promotion, but Watts knew he could be even bigger, potentially the biggest draw in territory wrestling, with the help of some truly vicious heels. The Freebirds, Michael Hayes and Terry Bam Bam Gordy, arrived in Mid-South Wrestling in 1980, with Bill Watts immediately impressed by Gordy's size and talent. Gordy, however, didn't want to leave his best friend behind, and it was claimed that the two came as a package deal. Recognizing Hayes' incredible charisma, Watts decided to keep them as a team, but added another wrestler, so Hayes could occasionally stay out of the ring. Enter veteran buddy Jack Roberts, completing what would become one of the most infamous teams in wrestling history. Watts saw their potential instantly. The Freebirds had charisma, chemistry, and a natural ability to generate heat that made fans feel like they were witnessing something real. More importantly, they were the perfect foil for Junkyard Dog. The contrast was electric. JYD was grounded, proud, and the people's champion, while the Freebirds were loud, arrogant, and unpredictable. Rock stars who acted untouchable. On May 2nd, 1980, Terry Gordy defeated Junkyard Dog for the Louisiana Heavyweight Championship, officially igniting a feud that would last for years, JYD versus the Fabulous Freebirds. The Dog didn't face them alone. He enlisted tag partners like Colonel Buck Robley and Terry Orndorff to battle Hayes, Gordy, and Roberts for the Mid-South Tag Team titles throughout 1980. JYD used every tool at his disposal to fight back against the brash trio, but the feud was just beginning. To heighten the drama and generate sympathy for JYD, Watts booked a no disqualification hair versus hair match between two top babyfaces, JYD and Buck Robley, against the Freebirds Gordy and Roberts, with Hayes on the outside. If the Freebirds won, Robley's hair would be cut. If JYD's team won, Hayes' long blonde locks were at stake. During the match, the Freebirds cheated to secure victory. As Robley was held down, Hayes produced a mysterious cream potion that could remove hair entirely. When JYD came in to save his friend, Hayes smeared the potion into JYD's eyes. JYD sold the moment as if his eyes were burning, creating one of the most shocking and memorable angles of his career and cementing the feud in wrestling lore. What made this moment so extraordinary was Cowboy Bill Watts' commitment to kayfabe, the idea that wrestlers must stay in character at all times, even outside the ring. To make the blinding angle believable, Watts took realism to the extreme. He actually paid JYD to stay home and pretend he was blind, and JYD was seen around town at stores and in public, acting as if he were learning to navigate his new life. In an ironic twist of life-imitating art, JYD had a child during this time. Watts realized he could use this to draw even more sympathy from the audience. He filmed JYD at home, talking about how, because of the Freebirds, he couldn't even see his newborn daughter. Fans were captivated. They even sent money in envelopes to Mid-South Wrestling headquarters, desperate to help the Dog in his fictional plight. The feud reached such a fever pitch that at one point JYD was scheduled to give what was billed as a farewell speech to wrestling and the fans, only for the dastardly Freebirds to interrupt him. The crowd erupted. A near riot almost broke out as fans feared the Freebirds would attack the blinded hero. Reportedly, one man even entered the ring with a pistol, screaming that he was protecting the Dog. Luckily, security stopped him before he could act. For Watts, the message was clear. The angle was incredibly hot, and the feud was far from over. The Freebirds and the Junkyard Dog was no longer just a storyline. It had become a cultural event, one that blurred the line between wrestling and reality in ways no promotion had ever attempted. Even while blinded, Junkyard Dog knew he had to stand up, for himself, his family, and his fans. He challenged the symbolic leader of the Freebirds, Michael P.S. Hayes, to a match that would settle the score once and for all. To make the contest feel as realistic as possible, Watts devised a dog collar match inside a steel cage, a brutal setup that would allow a blind wrestler to fight on his own terms while still putting on a spectacular show. The match was booked as the main event for a major Superdome card in New Orleans, the biggest event in Mid-South wrestling history at the time. On August 2nd, 1980, JYD finally faced Hayes, exacting his long-awaited revenge on the man who had blinded him. The event drew the largest gate the territory had ever seen. Adding to the spectacle, the remaining Freebirds co-headlined in a tag team match against JYD's ally Buck Robley and the legendary Dusty Rhodes, giving fans multiple layers of drama and action on one card. The success of the Superdome show was explosive. It cemented JYD as a true superstar, established the Freebirds as one of wrestling's most hated factions, and proved the drawing power of a storyline built on realism and emotional investment. Watts capitalized on the momentum, booking grudge matches in other towns across the South, turning the feud into a territory-wide phenomenon that drew massive crowds and solidified Mid-South wrestling's dominance in the region. The feud between Junkyard Dog and the Fabulous Freebirds reached its zenith with the Blinding Angle, a storyline so intense that it blurred the line between performance and reality in ways few wrestling angles ever have. All four men, JYD, Hayes, Gordy, and Roberts, would go on to become legendary acts across the country, but nothing ever generated the sheer heat of that moment. A beloved babyface seemingly betrayed, blinded, and left to fight for his dignity. After Mid-South, the Freebirds would go on to cement their legacy in Texas, igniting a legendary rivalry with the Von Erich family, while JYD became a national star as part of the WWF's rock and wrestling era, crossing over into mainstream pop culture. Yet despite their later accomplishments, there was something uniquely electric about the Blinding Angle in 1980. It wasn't just wrestling, it was a shared cultural event. A story that gripped fans across the South and made them feel like participants in the drama. The impact of the feud extended beyond ticket sales and television ratings. A survey conducted among New Orleans schoolchildren during the 1981 academic year found that JYD was the overwhelmingly preferred local sports figure they most wanted to meet, surpassing even legendary athletes like New Orleans Saints quarterback Archie Manning and Hall of Fame basketball star Pistol Pete Maravich. The Freebirds versus the Junkyard Dog feud remains a landmark in wrestling history, a perfect storm of storytelling, charisma, and realism. It showed that wrestling could provoke genuine emotion, capture the spirit of its community, and turn a simple athletic contest into something far bigger. A reflection of society, a measure of heroism, and a moment that fans would never forget.